to have you all here. Thank you so much for coming today. We're going to be talking about the best initiatives for women in tech and engineering, and I'd love to hear from you as well what you think they are, what you have seen actually works to get women into tech and engineering, to keep them into tech and engineering, or actually to help them return into tech and engineering or retrain them, so whatever works. So this is very much interactive usually, where we share what we've learned, what we know. So I do need to be able to hear you and ideally even see you. So if you can turn on your video, that would be fantastic, like Dana and I have. And I think you can see us. So who am I? Inge Woudstra, leading this session today, Gender Smart Talk session. What I do, I work with organizations in tech and engineering to recruit more women, but also to make sure they are retained and they advance at the same rate as men do. So typically organizations come to me and they say, Inge, we're not getting any CVs from women, what can we do? So I help them look at their recruitment processes. Oh, hi Caroline, thank you for making yourself visible, that's so nice. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, so they have get no CVs from women, so I help them set up a series of things that works for their company. And it's not rocket science, honestly. It's sort of getting the right language, getting the right images, being in the right places. And when you do that sustainably, consistently, you get more women. So one of the engineering firms I worked with was not getting any CVs from women. 50% of the applicants are now female, and 1/3 of their engineers is now female, and that's over 2 years. Now, this is not something I did, it's something I helped them with, it's something they very much did because they believe, that brings better gender balance. But I also work with organizations that say we have a big gender pay gap, what is going on? Or we have a lot of women, but they don't seem to be advancing. And recently I had an organization that said, look, we have a short list with all males for the partner positions. So what can we do? So I ran a series of focus groups with men and women in the firm, finding out what it takes to advance. I did exit interviews, I looked at their data with them, and it's often very much a joint process. And what we found was that it was quite an informal system to advance. You had to know the right people, you had to be in the right places, because there used to be a small organization and it was fine and everyone was visible. Whereas what they found now is that typically worked well for men, and that's what we see in the research as well. If you have an informal system, it typically works better for men, for those people that fit what people think, in this case, senior architects look like. So when you start making that a bit more formal, so we changed their promotion processes with them, making it more formal, making it clearer how to move up. We train their managers on how to give feedback, helping people to improve. And they're now seeing more women on that partnership track. So that's the sort of things I do. I'm also run the Big Fish Academy with my partner, Rena Goldenberg-Lynch from Voice at the Table. And we offer training for D&I professionals. So what are we doing today then? I'd love to hear what brings you here. Why do you want to? So we're going to do a bit of a round and get you all to tell me, because there's only 4 of us here on the call. So, I mean, it'd be lovely to hear what you do, what brought you here, and what you'd like to know about the best initiatives for women in tech and engineering. Then I'll sort of take it from there, but I've got some examples of projects that I think have been very successful, and I've got a complete list as well, but I'd love to sort of bring in your experience as well. So do you want to start, Dana? Who you are, what brings you here?
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yeah, fantastic, yeah.
Super. So I work today in technology, in engineering, so I have 2 teams of engineers. I'm originally from Romania, and at the moment I work in Copenhagen. And I experienced a different culture around, presence of female in technology in Romania versus Copenhagen. And at the moment, I don't think it's only me, but I think we are missing more female presence within engineering. So it's a topic that we started to discuss more often and more openly with all the managers and all the engineers. So we are trying different things around attracting more women um, in our interview process first.
Yep.
Yeah.
And specifically in the UK, or where exactly are you looking for more women?
So the company has engineering offices in Copenhagen and Vilnius, Lithuania.
Yeah.
But we are an international company, so we are, how to say, attracting talent from everywhere in the world. So it's not within the borders of Denmark, for example. So we are looking abroad for talent.
And is it specifically in tech? So would that be coding, or what kind of roles would you be recruiting for?
So I would say that my interest at the moment is around technology, yes, like how to attract more women in technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Great. And Caroline, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am based out of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and I run a small digital inclusion company focused on data science and AI called the Do Good Only Company. And we're passionate about digital inclusion. And a lot of that for me right now means that people having the skills or getting the skills that they need in order to work with technology today. And our programs right now are focused on data science and data analytics because they can fit across disciplines and they can fit across industries. And we know that there's a skill shortage, and we feel like we can eliminate a lot of those really obnoxious questions that filter people out because our cohorts have practical data science and data analytics skills. So instead of a company saying, yeah, well, you know, she's a woman, she might have a kid, maybe, you know, she's in that age, they're like, oh, but I need those skills because we don't, there's a scarcity in the market. So maybe I'm willing to flex my thinking around that. Or that's somebody who doesn't have a Dutch last name or things like that. So we use, right now, we're using the lever of technology skills to help drive more inclusion in technology, period, and to change who's ultimately going to be building it so that it reflects society rather than the demographic that's sitting in it currently.
So Caroline, are you finding then that women do have the right skills, but they're just not being hired?
Yeah, so our programs are open to everyone. So we have everyone in our current cohort, from people who've just arrived, who've been are still being processed through the refugee centers in the Netherlands, to people who were born and raised here and just didn't fit into the way the education system looks at talent and tracks them. So we also have men in our program, so it's not just women, because that's part of we want them to build networks together, right? So that more companies are better places to work rather than one company being a good place for with an inclusive environment. More companies are a good place to grow. And that also because networks hire from each other, right? So the next time somebody says, you know, I'm really looking for somebody that has these tech skills. Oh, I was in a cohort with somebody, or I am connected that way. And then we are doing a little revolutionary movement outside the traditional streams of HR and recruiting, because that's also key, because you've got to get access to the hiring people, right?
Yeah, so you're helping people build up that sort of get to know the right people and build up their own network so they get access to those.
In addition to the networks that we have from running the program. So it's because that's key. If you come to a new country or you come to a new community, even if you have the skills, you often probably will not have the network.
Yeah.
And if you're also working on learning the language, you're working on settling your family, you're working on all of and several other things all at once. You know, in some categories we call them an expat, and in other categories we call them, you know, a refugee. And our goal is to open those doors and even the playing field for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. And then I'm not sure, HST19, it shows up on my screen. So can you make yourself known, please?
Yeah, hello, it's
Hi.
Holly. I'm not sure why you've got my username up there, but I'm Holly. I work at Sky Betting and Gaming in the UK. I work in the people team, so focus on our inclusion agenda as a whole. And over the past couple of years, we've done kind of lots of different activities to try and shift the dial on our gender balance. Some of the obvious things like the CV technology that decodes the gender decoders. We've completely rebranded our whole external brand from a careers point of view. It was very kind of like, because we're predominantly a tech business, but our brand is also sports and gambling, so we've got a bit of a treble barrier. So we've refreshed all of our careers site, trying to promote role models as well as changing the look and feel of it to make it feel more approachable. And then one of our biggest initiatives, which is providing the most results at the moment, is our Tech Academy, so our graduate programme for tech. This year we got an 80% female intake, which is phenomenal compared to previous years, and has mainly been from our Tech Academy team, going out to universities and speaking to people directly, demystifying a career in the gambling industry, demystifying what it means to have a career in technology. And I think that face-to-face conversation has kind of really pushed the shift, and we've opened it to all degree disciplines as well. So we've got English grads coming on the tech programme, people from all different backgrounds. So that's probably displayed the most results for us at the moment.
Yeah, that's really impressive. We definitely have to hear more about that. So really good to have you here. We had a fifth person on the call, but they're having tech problems. Have we got someone else there? Has everyone said everything? Yeah? Yes, so it's the four of us. So what I'd like to do is just, yeah, really, I mean, sounds like you all have huge amounts of experience. So I like to start with sort of my example. And then I've got sort of 3 examples. So, but let's look at the first one, which is very much, and I'll bring up my slide for that. Let me see, where is it? Oh yeah, share my screen. Here we are. Yeah. So this is an initiative I've seen that I find is very practical and also very impactful, and it is aimed at girls, so getting girls into tech. And what WISE found, Women in Science and Engineering here in the UK, they found that actually girls do enjoy tech, but then around sort of 14, 16, when they start to look for careers and make their sort of choices for their exams, which we call GCSE choices, they somehow think it's no longer cool, and they can't really imagine what you become. So they actually decided to develop a career tool, and it looks like this. You do like a couple of questions, 10 questions. So I did it myself, and it sort of asks, what do you enjoy more, this, that, or that, this, that, or that, and then you get sort of 3 profiles that come out, and so it's really a quiz. And I got these 3 personality types that came out: a communicator, developer, and quality controller. You can then click on each one of these, and it sort of describes what you do in one of these roles. So here I've clicked developer. And then you can also meet the other developers. So it's really bringing in something that girls really like, typically, meeting other people, hearing stories from other people. So you can actually read what other people do that have become a developer. And this tool I really like because it's really taking the gender differences into account, how girls typically like to hear from other women, they typically like to hear stories, how it often works well. Yeah, they found actually that girls don't talk about this is what I'm good at, or this is what I can earn a lot of money in the future. They talk about what they like doing. So it's really sort of looking at, this is how girls talk about their career. So this is how we're going to talk about their careers. So and what they do now, they actually, as an organization, you can work with WISE and sort of populate it with the women in your organization. So typically, if you're a large company, let's say Rolls-Royce or Siemens, you would have this on your website, and girls can actually try, oh, would I like working for Siemens? Or a school could use it, and then meet the other developers in Siemens, or meet the other developers in Shell or in Rolls-Royce. So it works like that. So would love to hear what your experiences are with getting girls into STEM and getting them to choose science and engineering and tech careers. And anyone got any good experiences with projects that work for that?
I'll jump in here. So because of our industry, we can't ever interact with people who are under the age of 18, which provides additional barriers, because we can't go and do that kind of early on interaction with girls, with schools. So we have to just jump in at the point of universities. So we almost have to rely on the people kind of sparking that interest in young girls to provide our future pipeline, because we can't go out there and do that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and have you seen any projects that it's just you're not involved in it, you're not sure what happens in schools, full stop? I mean,
we are aware of the WISE campaign.
Yeah.
We've spoken to them. And there's kind of seems to be lots of local projects going on around as well. I think there's been a bit of a trend towards recognising that this is needed. So I think you've got your big scale projects, but also at a more local level with businesses and schools, they're starting to realise that we need to do these kind of initiatives. So, yeah.
What do you think, Caroline, Dana? Anything that works in schools?
So I have consciously moved away from the programs around girls, not because I don't think they're important. They are, but they get a lot of attention, and they, there's a lot of, and I think what really works is a long, a committed approach. So it's not like, every year there's always like around International Girls' Day or International Women's Day, there's an event by various tech companies to come in and, and work with a Raspberry Pi, or learn to brand yourself, or build your own website, or manage your social media. And I don't think that works. I think that's transactional at best. I think the best initiatives are the programs I've seen that are oriented towards building something up, whether that's through the community or it's through organizations that band together and say, okay, we're going to commit to a 9-month interval of every 2 weeks, we're making something, we're connecting something across those areas. Because the one-time off things, the reality is, to be a woman in tech or engineering, and in other fields as well, but specifically in tech and engineering, it's fine that everyone's building the pipeline or thinking that it's a problem at the beginning of the pipeline, but it's actually a problem all the way through the process. It's a leaking pipeline. It's all of the cultures around it. And in order to do that, to be successful, you've got to build the resilience, and you've got to have the places to fall back on, and the networks to fall back on, and the knowledge to fall back on, because the research shows that you're going to go from company to company to company, probably in terms of advancing your career or escaping the culture that you're in, right? The statistics I saw the other day, that of most women in mid to senior career, 51% of them leave tech, and of those, then another 50, half of that group never returns to tech at all. And so you have, for me, the early education, or the early outreach, or the early funnel, I feel like there's so much attention for that, and that's great. That's easy. It's attractive. It's not tackling the deeply rooted cultural problems.
I could not agree more, Caroline, because actually there's been research here in the UK, sort of longitudinal research. I think it goes back to the 70s, looking at people that did STEM degrees, so people that were at university and did engineering, technology type degrees, and where they went, and then comparing man and women. I mean, they looked at man as well, but then they actually specifically looked, is there a difference between man and women? And what they find is that women are, so once they've already in university, they are less likely that when they graduate to then go into a technical type job or an engineering job. And once they're in a job like that, they are more likely to drop out, and they will quicker drop out. So yeah, absolutely. As you said, you know, these are women that actually have an interest in engineering already, have an interest in tech already, and somehow then get lured away by other industries. So that's quite interesting that, yeah, I agree that I think that is such a, companies find it really easy in my experience to just, oh, let's send some role models to schools. Yeah. And they're like, great fun project, and they do a Lego day or a Raspberry Pi day. And there's a lot of government support for that, and there's some big sponsors for that. And then, yeah, where does that go? I mean, it doesn't actually, and it's also what I hear from women working in the industry. They say, actually, I've dropped out and it's actually really tough for me. Now, if these women are sending those messages to their environment, then who's going to want to work in this industry, the industry, right? So I think, yeah, there is a real value to be had to focus on the women that are already in there, that are already interested.
So we
sorry, go on, Caroline. Yeah.
We focus the other way. So we focus specifically on finding ways to help more women who are working age now transition into technology if they weren't already there before, or for women who are at that point where they have dropped out of technology, pulling them back in, right? And also through creating more spaces where you're determining the culture that you work in, right? Rather than going back out and banging your head against the culture wall in another environment, what if you were to start something yourself? What if you form your own collective? Where is the path to independence there, and shaping culture and impact there? So we're more focused on retaining women that are there now and pulling those that had left back in. Because otherwise we will continue to see this vacuum, and we won't see the change that needs to happen. And in order to get there, you have to have women at all levels in an organization.
Oh, hi Anita, thanks for joining. We've got a new joiner as well. So we're just talking about schools and how to get girls to choose STEM. And Caroline was saying, well, actually, it's not really about that. It's about focusing on the leaky pipeline throughout. And I would love to hear, Caroline, a project that you do. How do you get women to apply for that? Do you actually get is there anything in particular you do to draw women in?
We search, and we specifically, so the programs that we run also, we are very mindful that in the Netherlands, the expectation is schools end early on Wednesday, and your responsibility is to pick up your child. Doesn't matter which gender parent you are, the expectation still falls that it's the mother. That's society's expectation as well. So for a lot of women, only 27% of Dutch women work full time. And so we deliberately structure our programs that we do not meet on Wednesdays and Fridays. So whichever parent it is who is picking up a child, that's not going to be an impediment in a way. Yeah. We look specifically at transferable skills. We look at what have you done before, where could you add this layer of technology to the existing skills that you have, and what would be a good fit for you, what do you want to do with it, and work to place women in that space. We do traineeships for women who want to change careers into technology or return to technology, or don't have the right experience on their CVs for an employer to say, oh, I'll take that risk. We we spend so much time, we make as many things as possible flex. So digital platforms, you know, tools to communicate, having a home base, but not having a set schedule requirement, not having a set hour requirement, you know, not saying everybody has to be full time or everybody has to be here between 9 and 5. We try to build as many active practices that support inclusion into what we do every day. And then we lead by example with the fact that everyone on my team that is on the technical staff side is a woman. So when we go to a customer or when we go to a potential client, they're like, okay, so when's the technical talent getting here?
Yeah.
We're here. And
but basically what you do, you
it.
look at making it flexible, using the sort of making it actually sort of lowering the barrier, say, to the women to come, saying, look, it's actually really easy to fit around. You don't need all these resources, and then be role modeling to the company.
And we help you take the risk, because that's a lot of other things. Having somebody who looks at you and says, I believe that you can do this.
Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah.
There's others who've done it before you.
Yeah.
Is often, sometimes, if somebody who's already thinking about changing careers or already motivated in that space, that's the thing that makes the difference. That switch that somebody says, yes, of course you can learn this and do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, I'm very outspoken when I see bullshit in organizations. And I'll just, it can be Dutch direct. You know, when I see, when you are in a meeting room and the culture is clearly not inclusive, and then remarks are made about the capacity or talents of people, and I will call them on it. And I'll be like, what leads you to that conclusion? Where are you coming from? Are you aware that, you know, because if you don't say anything either, then the cycles keep perpetuating.
Yeah.
And but for the most part, and it helps that we focus on something that is a set of skills that are scarce in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That was when I was.
So just for the sake of Anita, that is data science.
Data science.
Yeah.
Mm. Because it helps remove some of those obstacles. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge. I mean, I have a tech background, and I, when, you know, and I did my time at the multinationals, and I can understand why people left. And when it was my turn to leave, I took it to go this way, to start somewhere where it could be better.
Yeah.
And so that's how we do it. We try to eliminate all of as many of the obstacles, the systemic obstacles that we can eliminate, combined with a push. You know, we're definitely right here standing with you, the solidarity, and then a call to action when we see things that need to be corrected.
Yeah, with the people hiring, right? Yeah. Anita, I wanted to just bring you in there. I mean, what brings you here, and what is your expertise, so we sort of know what's to come to you for?
Yeah, of course. So so my background is project management, actually not in tech, in construction and infrastructure, and railway. But at the moment, but I see lots of parallels in the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And now in my own consultancy, I work with women in project management from different sectors. So some of them are from a tech background, some of them are from construction and infrastructure as well. And I work with them on mentoring and encouraging, so on how to overcome some of the biases that exist in these male-dominated industries. So yeah, that's what brings me here today.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let me look at I'll just bring up my next two examples, and then we'll bring in more of your experience.
Right.
So let me see if I can share this. Oh, no, this is not sharing my screen. Here we are, share screen. Share. Oh, is it coming up? No. Yeah, now you should be able to see it. Is that right?
Yeah.
here we are. So what they do in Lloyd's, and I'm bringing this up as well because there's quite a lot here in that you mentioned, Caroline. In Lloyd's, they have 18,000 tech staff, so it's a bank, but they're very much a technology company. 35% of those are women, and it goes up to senior management. So how do they achieve this? A lot of demystifying, and I think that's really interesting because you've mentioned that as well. So it's been mentioned by Holly, I think, as well. So they work, instead of with role models, they call real models. So they try and retrain women within the bank because they're finding that a lot of banking jobs are no longer there, right? Retail, I mean, banking shops, no one really is there anymore. Whereas they do get a lot more jobs in the tech side. So they want the women they've got from the call centers, from the retail to move into tech. And they give them real models. So they introduce them, they do like small groups of people. They invite them and they say, what do you think, what about retraining? And here is someone who was in a similar role than you, and they'll share their story of how they retrained. And that's, they found very powerful. And also then you can shadow someone. So you can say, actually, yeah, I wouldn't mind trying that. But can I just see what you do? So they get a number of days often, or just one day where they can shadow someone. So for instance, they had someone in a call center who said, look, I love chatting with people. I love being in touch with people. I really don't want to work in tech. And they got her eventually to program the chatbots. And she's now leading their chatbot development team by going through this process. Other things they do is apprenticeships. So yeah, again, sort of demystifying, making the barriers really low where you get a lot of support. As you mentioned as well, Caroline, holding their hand, making sure you can try it out, having a short, you don't have to commit straight away, and you can do an apprenticeship. Then another thing, what Dyson did, and they have the Dyson School of Design and Engineering here in London, and it's called Dyson because it's sponsored by one of the big innovating companies, and his founder, Mr. Dyson, the founder of that, Mr. Dyson, is very interested in creativity, design and innovation and stimulating that in the UK. And he's spending a lot of his money on making this School of Design and Engineering world class. And they wanted to make sure they had as many women as men. So how do they achieve that? And they're achieving that all the time. And really interesting, I find, they're winning, like their graduates are winning a lot of prizes. So I come across people from this school quite regularly just by flipping through a magazine or flipping through the newspaper. And they are typically quite diverse, so different skin color, different culture, different heritage, or female. So what they do is they don't call it STEM, so it's not science, technology, engineering, but they actually introduce arts as well. So it's very much, and I mean, for non-English people, when we talk about, which because I didn't get this, when we talk about arts, this is the creative side of design, you know, making something look nice, being able to sell something, and they make sure they actually introduce is a large part of their program. So it's not just about engineering, we're also creating something and being creative. So that it's about design. They also have learned to be very proactive in their outreach, so which is why they are in magazines, in newspapers. They're very visible. So it's not like you have to know about them or have to have a family member who does this. You can read about it, think, hey, this is cool. I want to save the world. I want to do something for society. And here is someone who's just discovered this new type of artificial meat, and they're working in the Dyson School of Engineering, or who's actually developed something to clean our oceans. So they actually make sure these projects are very visible. And on their website as well, in the state, they have videos, they're on YouTube where they show how it works. In their the education program, it's very hands-on. So it's not very theoretical, it's very much you're actually working in the industry on real world design problems, which apparently also is very attractive to girls. You know, you actually get to see what you're going to be. And yet the visible success stories I mentioned, and working closely with others. So they're typically also working in teams. There's a lot of opportunities to learn from others, to get support from other teams. And these are all things that we know typically work well for women. On top of what has already been mentioned, getting the language right, you know, making sure you use something like the gender decoder, getting the imagery right, so testing your campaigns, your recruitment campaigns, or in this case, recruitment for new engineers, testing it on focus groups and seeing, does it attract to women? Does it talk about the future? Does it talk about real things you can do? And when you do that, you find that works for women. So it's about getting the language right, getting the images right, talking about the right things, and being seen in a wide variety of places. So not just the obvious places, but everywhere in society where women potentially come, and being seen there. So that's sort of what I know works. Would love to bring you in as well, Dana. Romania, what have you seen works there? Can you recognize this? What is working for you now?
So what I can share from Romania is that culturally, I think in the past, it was not uncommon for women to be engineers.
Yeah.
So how to say, we don't have this bias around, okay, you are a woman, you should not be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So the environment there, I worked there for 11 years. So I was used to work with more female engineers and architects and testers, project managers, and so on. So I'm not actually very much aware of any initiatives that happened in the companies I worked there.
Because
so
it was just happening, just because as part of society.
Yeah, I think it happened more organic. Of course, I'm pretty sure there could have been done more, but I'm not aware of any specific programs.
And now, because obviously you said you are working on some programs.
Yes, at the moment I work in Copenhagen, and we have an internal program around women in leadership. So it's not only focused on engineering or technology, but is around women in leadership in any department, any function.
And how effective is that for your organization?
The program is still young, so we tried it for 1 year in one of our offices, and we launched it recently in 2 more offices. I don't have data yet on how successful it was, but so far we got a lot of interest from people who are like colleagues and employees who want to contribute in a way or another.
And have you had any pushback from men?
No, not yet.
Oh, well, that's it, because some of the organizations I've worked with, they said, look, we don't want to do that because there was 2 problems with women-only programs. The one is, especially younger men, they're like, oh, how come there is all this special support for women? I want to have a career too. And they actually then sometimes leave or get disengaged because they feel they don't get the same support, which may not be true, but it's, they don't see it. And also a downside is that what Caroline is noticing, right? You can have the women wanting it and the women being ready for the next role, but if they're not being offered the next role, if no one's giving them the next role, when you do a women leadership program and you want it to be successful, what organizations find is that you need to have measures around it to make sure that people that give positions, hiring managers, are also on board with gender balance and lose their unconscious bias against hiring women.
Yeah, I agree. That's why so all the events, workshops that we organize within this program, they are open for both men and women.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because we need both in this boat. And the same with contributors. Those who are contributing are also men and women. And what I think is special about this program is that it's driven by employees. So it's not driven by HR at all. we have their support, of course, but it's driven by employees.
So what does that mean, driven by employees?
It means that how to say, the events or the program is designed by different employees who really want to contribute and change something around this topic.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Anita and Holly, any thoughts? What works in your experience in your organizations?
Just what you mentioned there around the pushback from the male point of view, we've definitely experienced a bit of that. We're about 80% male, average age 32, so a massive part of our demographic. And I think without that education bit, you really disengage a whole other audience who are so influential. They're the managers making the decisions on pay, promotions, recruitment. So we're trying to kind of work on engaging them in the why before we kind of put the pedal doing loads of great big programs and initiatives, because I think it was Caroline mentioned that you can't bring in all these people if you don't have like the infrastructure and the systems and the processes and the right attitudes and engagement in the business, because no one wins then.
There's a lot of background voices with you, Holly. Is there anything you can do about that?
Oh, sorry.
It's super interesting what you're saying, but it's really difficult.
Let me try and move a little bit.
Because
someone else can speak whilst I move.
Yeah. Oh, Anita, do you want to add anything from your experience?
Yeah, sure. So in my industry, it was very common. You know, you look upwards, and there might be the odd woman, there might be the odd person of colour, but the norm is that it's white middle-aged men. And there's a lot of talk about inclusivity. There's a lot, but there's not real understanding or buy-in. I found a lot of people just didn't really understand the why, or didn't really believe in it, so that's what was touched on, but also didn't know how. So I do agree, like, the education piece is massive. So the work I've recently been doing was a survey, and I spoke of 100 women in my profession, project management, and what was coming out of that were lots of messages that resonated with me and resonate that I don't think are surprising for women who are in male-dominated professions. They were things like women felt like they weren't being heard, that they weren't being taken seriously, that they didn't have access to opportunities. And another theme that kept coming up was that even if a woman was in a senior role or a project management role, they were just either assumed to be junior or expected to take on like the admin tasks.
Yeah.
And so I think as women, these things resonate with us. We can see, oh yes, I've been in similar experiences. But then when I talk to men in my profession, they're just oblivious to it. A lot of them are.
Yeah, very sure.
I
And
think
men are like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, or I've not even noticed, or it's like people want to support, but they just don't really know there's a problem, or they don't know how. That's what I'm finding.
Yeah, one of my clients actually said, now that I know that women get talked over in meetings, he said, I see it happen all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, when he's in meetings with potential clients or suppliers, and there is a female on the other side of the table, he will actually bring them in and say, oh, I think Anita wanted to say something. I'd love to hear what she's got to contribute.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, that's the sort of thing you need. But I mean, what have you done to get people to see the why and the how? The survey, obviously, which is clearly been powerful then. Yeah. Mm.
No, yeah, I've got to do a bit more work on publicising the results, so that'll be one thing.
Oh, I'd love to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and taking that message more widely. So it's some of the work that I'm talking with some women's network about doing is doing something similar in their organisation, so that women are being given a voice and that voice being reflected back to the seniors. So there's a bit more of a appreciation of there is an issue here. So yeah, so a work in progress. And then my direct work with women is all about supporting them to not have to feel like they have to fit in a box for their leadership style, so that you can be authentic and an appreciation of your value and your worth, so that you can promote your message. So yeah, they're the things that I've been working on.
Oh, very exciting, because that's what my book is all about, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You need to read it.
Oh, definitely. Because I write about that, about sort of how the 5 key gender differences between men and women at work. And yeah, and showing that if you do things in a female way, you're automatically then feeling excluded and undervalued, because this is not the way that is accepted, a business way. And women often then say, well, oh, I'm just not very businesslike, or I'm still learning this, which isn't true. But you're doing things differently. You're getting to the same results, but you're getting there in a different way. So, I mean, I show what you can do about that as a woman to be taken seriously and still be authentic, and what you can do as a manager or as an organization to change that culture and create a place where the way women work is also accepted, which includes, as you mentioned, Caroline, flexible working, but it includes also a more supportive environment, more encouragement, more challenging women to achieve higher.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important. And I think a lot of the skills that we say are women like are just so important in leadership, like empathy and being caring and being supportive and having feelings and being able to express them. So, and we kind of sometimes want to mask those things because we're kind of taught that there's one style to be effective, and that's the powerful, domineering one. But I don't think that's good for men either, because not all men fit in that box either. So yeah,
I meet a lot of men that say that they preferred working in mixed gender teams. I mean, not just women, not just men, but when you have a good mix. And I mean, it's something that we have a lot of scientific evidence for, but I love it when it actually comes from men themselves, right? That say, I used to work in a mixed gender team, and now I'm in a male only team, and I really miss it. And these are the things that are different. So to get that real experience.
fantastic.
We're sort of nearing the end of our time already. I mean, we've got a few more minutes. Is there anyone else who's got some real insights in how to keep and what works for women in tech and engineering? Something we haven't touched on yet.
I think one of the most important things, and I think it's often overlooked, is the solidarity factor. And I think that there's all kinds of issues in place that work against inclusion in technology, but there's also the actions that we need to look to ourselves. There's often a lot of behavior where we feel because we're in a minority, or there's not enough visibility, or there's only enough room for a certain amount, that we don't actively support others in their same quest. And I think one of the things that would help us drive significant change is if we all recognize we don't have to agree with each other all the time. We don't have to want to go on vacation and spend months together, but we do need to be open to not standing in the way of another woman, and holding back, our urge to judge, or to shape that path, or to engage in another type of behavior that would hold another woman back. And I think that is something that each person can do individually. And it's really, really key, because I notice, and there's a lot of explosion around, well, I'm part of this woman in tech group, or I'm part of this woman in tech group. And that means that you're in another women in tech group, but we're competitors. And that's the status quo, playing the change makers against each other. So I think solidarity is something that is overlooked, and is something that we could change and would make our efforts that much more impactful.
Oh, that's interesting, because I find there's a lot of talk about women not supporting each other, and it's just never been my experience. I think it's a myth. it does occasionally happen, and then people get really upset. I think, yeah, there's a lot of men who haven't supported me. There's men who have. And it's the same way, there are some women who haven't supported me, and some women really have. And the women that have supported me have like properly supported me in a way, yeah, that has been very powerful, you know. So I think there is actually, in my experience, there is a lot of support. Also now in what I do now, I partner with a number of different women, and yeah, it's not about competing, it's about all driving in that same direction. Yeah, I totally agree, Caroline. Yeah.
Because if I sit with venture capitalists who are women, they tell me they often tell me, there's no gender issues with venture capitalists and women and everything else. And then I come back to the standpoint, because you've not experienced something directly does not mean it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the awareness that we need to raise with each other is that all of the experiences matter, and we want everyone to collectively rise, right? And there are layers of intersectionality and layers that come into play, but it's something that, especially as you climb higher in an organization, and there's less and less representation at the top, the more that becomes the norm. And that is not just here. I've seen that in the United States. I've seen it here in the Netherlands. You know, it's obviously different in cultures around the world, but I think it's something that just reaching out to being aware of what plays with other women is important. And being like, absolutely, I support your right to rise in your career and do the things that you're doing and make the change that you're making. And that's all we have to do, is just refrain from judging that. Because a lot of times too, what happens is people, when they're looking at considering women for promotion or for rising, then they turn to what the feedback is in the environment, right? And it's often not necessarily documented feedback, but also social. So if we can refrain from judgment, which is a massively human thing to do, we can also make some strides.
Yeah, and I think encouragement is very important for women. So it's one of the key things I teach managers to do with women in their team. So man, you need to challenge, typically what works for that is to give them a real challenge and say, it's going to be difficult, not sure you can do it, but I'm expecting this. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you say that, some women get really motivated by that. Don't get me wrong, because we're not all the same, but often women will be like, oh gosh, that sounds really difficult, maybe it's not for me. So to actually then start the conversation and help women get through that and say, well, which bit is not for you then? And you actually said you were really interested in becoming a senior project management consultant, so which part could you not do? So how can we get you to get those skills? Oh, actually, you can do it. You know, so to actually talk through those issues and encourage women to try it and to aim higher is very powerful. And someone mentioned it. Someone mentioned it's what they do in their project as well. Was that you, Caroline? A lot of encouragement for women, right? Yeah, that was you. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's very powerful support and encouragement from other women, but also from men. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your experiences. It's been really, really good to hear from you. And thanks for joining late as well, Anita, and still being able to contribute. That's really good. Wanted to close for today and also mention an event I have coming up on the 5th of November. I'm launching the Big Fish Academy. It's an academy for people leading in diversity and inclusion, people aiming to have a real impact in diversity and inclusion. And we have a training day a full day where we teach people tools, templates, best practices on how to create a diverse organization. We've got a lot of people that have won prizes with their programs to come and speak. I'm leading a workshop. My partner Rina is leading a workshop. And then after the 5th of November next year, we start a program with, which will be following on from these Gender Smart Talks. So these Gender Smart Talks will be merged into the Big Fish Academy. because I find that actually people come here often to learn things and be taught things, whereas it's what we did today is very much sharing and sharing experiences. And a lot of people ask me, well, I don't just want to share, I want to learn. So we're adding expert interviews where you can come and hear from the experts what they did. We're adding webinars, which is like a training, but just a 1-hour training. We're adding half-day training programs, which sadly for the people that aren't near London are going to be in London. But a lot of what we do will be recorded. So we're also building up resources online. So this is all coming in 2020. So I'll make sure that in the follow-up, you can also have a look at the event at November the 5th, because it would be great to see some of you there. Maybe Anita and Dana, as you are in the UK, it would be easier for you to join. So it would be great to see you there. Thank you all for coming today, and see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.